There's a lot in the news regarding coronavirus vaccines that have been developed by numerous pharmaceutical companies, but we're now learning that when the Trump administration had the opportunity to purchase enough doses for average Americans, they passed up on that opportunity. So this has to do with a deal that the Trump administration made with Pfizer, which is one of the pharmaceutical companies that has developed its own vaccine for coronavirus. And the administration agreed to purchase 100 million doses. They did so for a whopping $1.95 billion. But something to keep in mind is that the 100 million doses should really be thought of as enough doses to vaccinate 50 million people, because Americans, everyone, people in general, need 2 shots in order to be properly vaccinated against the coronavirus. Now, Pfizer has noted that it cannot guarantee that it will be able to deliver more than the initial 100 million doses, enough to inoculate 50 million people, since its vaccine requires 2 shots, before perhaps next June. That's really bad news because since the supplies are limited, it is unlikely that most average Americans are gonna get vaccinated before the summertime. Now, the White House has denied this allegation. Kayleigh McEnany held a press briefing today where she completely flat out denied it and argued that there are other pharmaceutical companies that the Trump administration has signed deals with, and they'll get the doses from those companies. But really the details on that still remain pretty unclear. Now, after Trump declined to initially purchase more than that 100 million doses, the pharma giant actually went on to make deals with the European Union, where they purchased 200 million doses of this vaccine. Now, Trump has signed an executive order that applies his America First philosophy to the pandemic by proclaiming that other nations will not get the US supplies of its vaccine until Americans have first been inoculated. And so this executive order means nothing. And I'll explain why in just a minute, but here's a video of Trump being an absolute goofball, talking about his executive order and what it allegedly does.
It will end the pandemic. It will end the pandemic, and we're working with other nations. As you see, actually, by looking at your screen today, we're working very closely with other nations also to get the vaccines out to other nations. And that's very important. We work with the world. We're working with the world. We have great companies, and we're working with the world. In just a few minutes, I'll sign an executive order to ensure that the United States government prioritizes the getting out of the vaccine to American citizens before sending it to other nations.
Yeah, that's what governments do. They buy doses of the vaccine for their own people. That's what they do. The point is, he didn't purchase enough doses of the vaccine or secure enough doses of the vaccine when he had the opportunity to do so. That is the issue here. I mean, this is like me saying, I am signing an executive order indicating that I will not share my husband with other women. Like, what? Like, husband and I made a deal. Like, that's what the deal's about. We keep it, one-on-one, monogamous. Like, same with the vaccine. He made a deal to buy doses of the vaccine for Americans. This executive order means nothing. It's so stupid.
It's actually, Anna, believe it or not, slightly worse than that. So let me explain. Now, the first part, let me acknowledge that making those deals was not as straightforward as you might imagine. So it's easy to say, hey, why didn't we make a deal with Pfizer to guarantee 660 million doses? That's what we would need, 2 doses for each American, and we get it first. And who cares if, and their price is fine. It's $19.50 per dose. It's a couple of $1 billion, but it's, given the scale of this problem, it's not as big a deal. But remember, we didn't know it was going to be Pfizer who developed the vaccine first. And so there was 6 other companies that were working on it. At least there was a lot more companies, but 6 that have had some degree of success. So we made a deal for 100 million doses. If we had known ahead of time, then we would have made a deal for more. So I'm giving Trump a break on that one because I think that it's not as straightforward, okay?
Now, hold on one second. Keep that thought. I just want to respond to what you've said so far. I mean, he's he wrote The Art of the Deal, right? He's supposed to be an excellent deal maker. It seems like he's been making lots of really bad deals, even if it's challenging to predict how the future is going to play out. Yeah, obviously, go ahead.
Yeah, and on that one, it's also worse than it looks, because Pfizer was not part of Operation Warp Speed. So he actually made the very worst deal. Like the one company that came in first is the one company he didn't have a deal with. So that where the US pays them, and hence we have a higher priority, right? And so Pfizer was a big part of saying no to that. But at the same time, you're right, Anna. I mean, of all the deals he could have made, he made the absolute worst one. So now it gets worse from there, because you say, okay, well, that one's hard to predict, but he made a bad deal, but okay, it happens, right? Well, now Pfizer is saying, well, look, we got 100 million vaccines, so that covers 50 million Americans. That means 280 million Americans are not covered, and we can't get to the rest of you until June. Oh, for Christ's sake. That's when it begins. And remember, we did this story yesterday on the show. Now bankers have found a way to get prioritized second. So the bankers will be in the first batch, but the rest of us will have to wait. Right? And guys, we've told you this 100 times. It's not like we like being shut in our homes. We like not being able to travel or eat at restaurants. No, we hate it. We're doing it for the benefit of mankind, but we don't like it either. So we want the vaccine to get here as soon as possible. So now, on top of that, when he goes to do this executive order, he's like, "Oh, you know what? We're gonna put America first, and so you should prioritize countries and give it to us first." But we don't have a deal to get it first, so that allows Pfizer and the other countries to go, "Well, you said it was right to prioritize countries, and we only have that one deal with you guys, and not for the 280 million other Americans. So according to your own logic, we're now going to prioritize the countries we do have deals with, which is all of Europe. So you're now going to have to go to the back of the line based on your own idiotic logic."
Right, and look, there are some issues with how this vaccine will be distributed, not just in the United States, but worldwide. Because Pfizer specifically, I can't speak to the other pharmaceutical companies, but Pfizer specifically has made deals with wealthy countries, including the United States, Canada, the European Union, Britain. But when it comes to, middle income countries or poor countries, they haven't been able to secure any deals or any doses of this vaccine. And look, you might think, well, I'm in the United States, I don't care. I don't agree with that perspective overall. But even if you think that, consider the fact that this is a virus that allegedly came to the United States from a different country. And so this is really an international effort to combat this pandemic. And so, as we see, as is the case in most situations, money determines who gets any type of help. So look, and at the same time, I will take it a little easy on the Trump administration, I guess, if you take into consideration the deals that it has made with other pharmaceutical companies that have shown promising results in terms of their vaccine development. So Moderna has shown some promising results. We'll see if they get approved by the FDA. Pfizer's vaccine is expected to get approved by the FDA this weekend. The UK has already approved it less than a week ago. But apparently Johnson & Johnson is still in the process of developing its vaccine. So there are different pharmaceutical companies that are showing promising results. We'll see how it plays out. But if we were only relying on Pfizer, which would be a disaster, most Americans would not have access to the vaccine until the summer of 2021.
Yeah, so look, here's more counterproductive stuff. So Trump had preemptively declared that we're not helping the rest of the world, and we didn't. Everybody else signed on to a pact where we would. It's not like Belgium was saying, hey, you know what? We think Paraguay should go first. No, Europe prioritized itself, but they said, but we'll work with everyone else to make sure the world gets the vaccine. And Trump said, no, I don't want to do that. So now the rest of the world goes, well, you say you didn't want to work with us, and you're not up first. So sad day for you, back of the line. Oh, Well, there you go. How's America First working out for us now? Now he's turned America First into America Last. And so, and then one more thing, there's an act in America that says, hey, you know what? In a national emergency, we can nationalize some of your production and make you produce it for us. And Pfizer is technically an American company because it's based in New York. So people are saying, well, maybe we could do that. But it turns out no, because of course there is no such thing as an American company. It's a fiction. When they say corporate America, it's not true. All corporations are multinational at this point. And so Pfizer has production in Europe. So we can't stop their production in Europe, and we can't stop them prioritizing their production in Europe. Oops, America last.
No, oops is correct. And currently, as this pandemic and new coronavirus cases spike across the world, really, but especially in the United States, there are some travel bans, which of course makes a lot of sense. But as other countries do a better job in combating this virus, it is going to be a little comical that Americans are likely going to be the ones that are banned from traveling to other countries.
No, I mean, as you know, we're already banned. We're the most banned country in the world because we have the most cases in the world. We have the most deaths in the world. That's actually logical. I hate it because I'm an American, and honestly, look, I want to help the world, and I would have signed on to help the world, and I would have liked us to get it first. But now it looks like we're going to get it among the last. So no, we're going to do better. I get it, than the third world. It's true, right? But certainly among developed countries, we're going to be among the last to get it, and it's taken away giant chunks of our life. So we can't be free here, and we can't be free to go abroad because of Donald Trump's, it's almost like a parting shot of massive incompetence to screw over the country one last time in a way that is so damaging. Honestly, I don't know that any Trump policy has affected my life more than this one. Because he bungled this, we're gonna have to stay in our homes for an extra 3 to 6 months.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And it's affected, I mean, when you look at, of course, we talk about the health aspect of this pandemic all the time, and that's the most important aspect. But it's also important to look at how this pandemic has essentially put inequality on overdrive, right? Like it's really exacerbated that problem that we already had. And so one of the worst policies that came out of the 2008 economic crash, which actually also exacerbated inequality in America, was when the Federal Reserve decided to just print money, hand it over to the banks. And the whole idea there was, well, no, that money will trickle down to small business loans and average Americans looking to buy homes, things like that. Of course, that's not what happened. These banks just took that money and they bought shares of their own stock. They went and paid dividends to their investors. And at the same time, no one bailed out average Americans. No one took care of Americans who were being foreclosed on. And so this pandemic has taken that policy and really expanded on it. So what we're experiencing right now is bad, but I think it's really important to be realistic about how the ramifications of this government's mismanagement is going to impact average Americans for decades to come, entire generations. I mean, just look at what's happening to children right now. It's so heartbreaking to see kids not be able to socialize with their peers and just have normal lives. They're stuck at home in many cases. They're not able to get the education they need. I'm teaching, a journalism class right now virtually, and I will say it is awful. It is awful. I do not recommend. I just don't. I don't think that's any way to teach anyone anything. And I'm talking about college students in this case. So you're absolutely right. It didn't need to be this bad, but Trump never cares about anything other than himself. If he doesn't see a policy as enriching his own stock portfolio or enriching his own life, he's not gonna do it, which is why he's basically abandoned Americans when it comes to responding to coronavirus.
Yeah. Anna, let me say one or two really quick last things. One is, look, I'd be very curious to see what drug companies Trump and his allies have money in. And so I hope somebody does that story, because was there a reason why Pfizer was left out of Operation Warp Speed, and how many So not only did it cost us our freedom for so much longer, but that's the last point, which is that it's also going to cost a lot of people their lives in that amount of time. That if we had gotten it earlier, we would have had a lot less deaths. So that extra 3 to 6 months is probably tens of thousands of Americans dead because of, at a minimum, Trump's incompetence, if not corruption.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.